Hey everyone, welcome to Social Studies. Just wanted to bring us back to what we were talking about in the previous days with a quick little bell ringer here. First question is, what was America's initial response to World War II? You got it. We tried to stay neutral, tried to not be involved with the war as much as possible. I mean, we were going through a depression. It's probably kind of important for us to be focusing on ourselves. However, there's an event that brings us into war. Do you remember what that event was? They call it a day that will live in infamy. This day was the attack on Pearl Harbor. It's when Japan attacked Pearl Harbor. That would be the event that would bring the United States into war. What do you think will happen in America once war is declared? Hint, think back to World War I. And this question is really what we are going to be exploring today. We're going to be exploring the home front. And a front in a war is how far your borders or boundaries have extended. When we're talking about the home front, we're talking about what we did at home to help the war effort. So, by the end of the day today, you should be able to list and describe efforts made by Americans to help the war. We're just going to kind of quickly go through some of the things that you're going to be looking at. So, just like in World War I, there was this idea that food will win the war. The idea that we should save food so that way we can send it to our troops. So you're going to be looking at these documents right here. So how did the government control what food people got or what goods people got? Well, this is where the government really rationed things, and you would get what was called a ration book. Here's a nice little picture of what they look like. You would get these books, and they'd be for things like, if you see there, it says clothing, but lots of times it'd be for things like gas or wheat or, meat or whatever it may be. And you would take these books, and you would get little stamps on them that would show you purchased something. Once you had the stamp, you couldn't purchase that thing again until you either got a new book or it was time to get a new stamp. This is how the government controlled what people couldn't buy, and these were ration books. We rationed items. Does that mean that some people didn't buy more? They probably did. If I had to guess, you could borrow someone else's ration book if you needed. But once they were stamped, that was it. So this is how the government controlled what we could and couldn't buy. Oh, once again, we see this little propaganda. We saw this in World War I too. Your victory garden counts more than ever. So not only did they want us to save food, to only buy a little bit and use ration books, but they also had this thing called victory gardens, which is this idea that if you planted a garden at home, you could not need to buy as much, and ultimately your garden is leading towards a victory for the United States. Just like in World War I, we're going to have bonds, which are government IOUs. It's where you give the government money, and in return, you get a nice little piece of paper, and you turn that piece of paper in years later, and you get your money back plus more. And these, if you remember in World War I, lots of times they were called victory bonds, right? Because again, if you're giving the government money, you're helping us to win a victory. Rosie the Riveter is going to be another big thing that comes out during this time. She's a fictional character, but she's going to be propaganda for women, and it's really pushing women to go into the workforce. Rosie the Riveter is not a real person. Like we said, she's a fictional character, but she becomes pretty famous and symbolic of women in the power that they had and felt during this time by doing their part and going into the factories and doing that work. And here's that little picture that we were just kind of talking about of victory bonds, right? Because if you buy the bonds, you're helping to keep, in this case, the propaganda was saying you're helping to keep the baby safe. Ultimately, right, with World War II, the idea behind all of the stuff that we were doing on the home front was the idea that the soldiers and troops and their needs come first. Our needs come second. So when you think about our big idea, what is more important, individual rights or the collective good? Anytime we're at a war, you see a lot of people making sacrifices to do what is good for everyone else, and not getting the things that they normally would get. So you're going to go through all those documents and answer the questions like we said today. And then at the bottom, you're going to complete the review down here, which is just kind of defining those key terms that we talked about. And once again, you get to end here with a quick little paragraph thinking about this idea of collective good or individual rights. We outlined the paragraph for you, so it's really not writing a paragraph. It's just kind of filling in a couple blanks. Thanks for tuning in. Keep up the good work. We hope to see you soon.